One of the indie series that I've grown to appreciate over the years has been Image-Informed Steamworld, even if calling it a series is a bit misleading. Outside of a very loose bit of continuity, the only connecting tissue that the likes of Dig, Heist, and Tower Defense share is how willing they are to add a unique spin to well-treaded territory like turn-based strategy or Metroidvania, a trait that's shared by their latest release, Steamworld Quest, Hand of Gilgamech. This time around, the Hand of Gilgamech sees INF tackling a personal favorite genre, the role-playing game. Have they successfully shaken up a formerly foreign setting for a fourth time? Let's find out. The story opens with retelling of how the titular Gilgamech became the legend he's known as, a legend that inspires a young knight in Armorly to try and join their local guild. Unfortunately for them, their village is suddenly attacked by the Void Army, and much of its inhabitants are taken prisoner. Armorly and company then set off to rescue everyone that the army has taken captive, on a journey that quickly grows the number of companions that accompany them, and the threat which eventually endangers the entire world. It's typical fantasy fare one would find in the likes of Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest that, on paper, provides a solid foundation for Steamworld's trend-bucking tendencies. It's just a shame that so much of it this time around takes the form of unfunny memes. One of the guild members is a character named Gaines. There is a leaked joke in this game. There is a reference to Khaleesi's milkshake. This game was released in 2019. Having any one of these would have been groan-worthy enough, but it becomes obnoxious when the majority of the dialogue is regurgitating lowbrow internet humor that would seem tired, if more appropriate, if found on Reddit. I have expected one of the characters to be described as an absolute unit when they join you. Their prominence completely decimates any chance of taking the game's more dramatic moments seriously. It's hard to feel anything for what should be a heartfelt reunion between professor and student, or soul-crushing realization that one's hero is not who they envision them to be, when you're half expecting one of the villains to break out into a monologue about how
all your base are belong to us. You are on the way to destruction.
What you say?
Honestly, it makes me appreciate the storytelling of Steamworld Dig 2 all the more, namely for being more tonally consistent and focused on meaningfully developing its main character. By the end of Steamworld Quest, the game had told us that each character had grown up, but didn't do much to actually showcase it throughout the tale. It more or less rushes to the supposed culmination of the cast's respective arcs without exploring how they got there in any significant detail, paying lip service to it at best during the final few boss encounters. It feels like there were whole chapters from the story where the development was supposed to occur, but got torn out at the last minute, and all we're left with is a novel that fails to advance its characters to where they're supposed to be by the final page. What makes the writing especially disappointing is that, as far as the comedy is concerned, Quest lands more jokes than it misses when it attempts to be original, or at the very least referencing more obscure memes that I didn't recognize. The game's writing is at its best when it's poking fun at the genre's cliches, or outright subverting them. While the humor overall demands a more required taste to be appreciated, there are plenty of giggle-filled gags and laugh-a-little moments that do emerge from the script. Based on these rarities in Dig 2, it's clear that Image-Informed has some accomplished writing chops. It's simply unfortunate that it's not on display for more than a handful of lines, something which sticks out all the more when we see how well Quest manages to add its unique spin on the tried-and-true turn-based battle system. In the realm of RPGs, there's no shortage of unique takes on turn-based combat. One only needs to take a look at the likes of #FEE World of Final Fantasy for but a few recent examples, but Steamworld Quest stands out for basing its combat on a deck-building card system a la Yu-Gi-Oh! Each character has a deck they can fill with cards that can be used to perform typical actions like attack, debuff your opponents, buff you or your own allies, or cast an elemental spell, with each active member's deck being combined and drawn from at the start of every battle, and every turn to replace any of the cards that have been used during the previous one. Similar to tributes in the aforementioned Yu-Gi-Oh!, certain cards can only be played by offering up gears that are earned by playing cards that don't demand any to be used. Combined with the ability to refresh your hand for new cards, it makes for a refreshing take on turn-based combat that boasts a surprising amount of complexity between balancing out garnering the gears to play your more powerful skills and chaining together the same hero's cards in order to be able to use an additional special skill. Or at least, it evolves to a point where it can be considered complex. Between the limited roster of cards you can cram in your party's deck and the roster which can play them, the type of tactics you can craft at the start is fairly limited. It's only during the middle portion where you're able to craft unique cards when more party members join and tag team combos come into play, which rewards making out members' cards in order to gain additional effects like a chance to instantly kill an opponent, that the system starts to show its best self. Once it opens up though, Hand of Gilgamech dishes out a decadently designed system for doling out damage. Like its humor, Quest does falter when it comes to difficulty due to how sporadically it spikes from chapter to chapter. Put another way, when you've run out of revival kits, it can be aggravating to constantly draw new cards for downed heroes during some of the trickier bosses when you were cruising through the last chapter and end up crushing the following one. The sole area where Steamworld Quest can be fairly called consistent is in its presentation. It is easily the best looking game in the series. The steampunk aesthetic makes for a magnificent match for a fantasy setting, and though the characters' arcs are not quite fully realized, the portraits are perfect at portraying the precise emotion a person is going through at a particular moment. I should also mention that, having played the Switch version, it looks especially gorgeous in handheld mode, with not a frame dropped whether docked or on the go. Overall, Steamworld Quest Hand of Gilgamech is yet another fine addition to the increasingly varied Steamworld series, albeit one that's a step down compared to its predecessor. While the gameplay displays the same level of creativity as previous Steamworld games, it lacks the same level of polish as its predecessor as it pertained to persistently perpetuating challenging encounters. Writing-wise, the title fails to live up to the lofty levels of role-playing games both Eastern and Western have risen to, let alone succeed as a standalone story. Still, if you're a fan of the series, or are seeking a unique take on turn-based combat, it's definitely worth a look. Steamworld Quest earns a 7.5 out of 10. That's all for now, folks. Until next time, game on, my friends.